Is your zodiac sign ready for the 2026 Fire Horse year? Imagine a horse made of flame, lungs full of wind, hooves striking sparks on the world's packed roads, an image both beautiful and dangerous. That vision is the pulse behind this reading. 2026 is not merely another turn of the calendar. It arrives as an archetypal force, swiftness that burns away debris, a heat that reveals what was forged well and what was only smoke. And when we read those flames through the seer's language, Nostradamus's evocative imagery as an interpretive lens, we find patterns that speak to timing, to tests, and to openings for every sign. This is not a decree, it's a map of possible weather. It is a call to readiness. Before we move into the signs, let me set the scene. The fire horse is a symbolic composite. Fire for purification, intensity, passion, and sudden transformation. Horse for movement, motion, and the demand to choose a path and ride it. Together, they describe a year that is likely to accelerate decisions, spotlight leaders, and force a trimming of excess. Think of January and February as the match struck. Small sparks, changes in mood, or an inner alarm that starts you looking up. Spring is where the kindling catches. Offers appear, old patterns are tested, first tangible shifts happen. Summer brings the blaze. Projects demand courage, relationships reveal their heat tolerance, and choices meaningfully alter trajectories. By autumn, there is either a forged, steady shape to show for the fire, or the ashes that remind you what you lost or refused to protect. We use Nostradamus here not as a literal cataloger of modern events, but as a poetic seer whose images resonate as archetypal metaphors. His quartets speak in images, of flame, of horses, of decisive years, and we borrow that language, translating it into timing and tendencies for each zodiac sign. The reading is interpretive, a way to see where the fire's wind is likely to push you. Expect months, domains, warnings about haste, and guidance on how to turn inner qualities into external gain. Above all, this year rewards preparation, discipline, and moral steadiness more than impulsive, reckless leaps. If there is one constant across the zodiac, it is that the fire horse favors those who use heat to forge, not to consume recklessly. If this message is landing with you, subscribe now so you don't miss which signs get the biggest revelations. Aries, the leader ignited. Aries, the fire horse finds a kindred spirit in you, quick to move, first to act, and impatient with delay. In January and February, you may feel a restlessness that is deeper than usual. Small prompts, a new contact, a sudden idea, an irritation with the status quo will not be mere reactions, they are directional signals. The challenge early in the year is to temper instinct with a measure of strategy. The horse's first hooves rattle the gate. How you step through matters. By spring, March through May, those early impulses may become offers you cannot ignore. A leadership role, a high visibility project, or a move that demands your boldness could appear. The temptation will be to accept everything at once, or to bulldoze through without consulting maps. Instead, this period rewards selective audacity. Choose one track to accelerate, defer other ambitions until you have momentum. This is a season for decisive pruning. Say no to what splits your energy. Summer, June-August, is the peak. Aries will be tested publicly. If you took the discipline to prepare in spring, projects will accelerate and supporters will appear, but so will rivals and moral tests. The fire horse quality here asks, will leadership be used to build or to burn? Your credibility could expand rapidly or fracture if pride or haste govern choices. Watch for moments when easy gains ask you to cut corners. The long-term cost is likely to outweigh short-term applause. Autumn, September, November is consolidation. Material gains, promotions, or the solidifying of a new reputation are possible. The months that follow allow you to stabilize what the fire made possible. Hire, reorganize, set durable systems. For Aries, the key takeaway is to use heat as a forge, not a conflagration. Prepare by choosing one strategic aim early, building a small, reliable team, and committing to deliberate follow-through rather than scattershot heroics. Taurus, the builder tested. Taurus, the fire horse, arrives as a pressure on your foundations. January-February offers a subtle shake, a ledger entry that doesn't balance, a lease renewal, or a relationship boundary that asks for clarity. These early stirrings may feel like inconveniences until you realize they are invitations to reevaluate what supports you. The horse's flame wants to test the quality of your roots. In spring, the practical openings arrive. A consolidation in finance, a contract that could cement a new income stream, or the chance to acquire a property at a window that won't return may present themselves. The safest path isn't in rushing to close every possibility. It's in performing careful due diligence while moving decisively when the evidence aligns. Your earth strength is endurance. Use it to claim advantages others squander in haste. Summer brings a more awkward pressure. Relationships around resources, partners, lenders, or colleagues may reveal true intentions. The fire horse's intensity exposes opportunism and generosity alike. Some Taurians might feel drained by unexpected costs or by the need to defend long-term plans against sudden skepticism. This is a moment where disciplined boundary work and clear contracts protect what you've built. By autumn, you can see what the year has permitted you. In favorable trajectories, vaulted stability emerges, saving stronger, a more aligned home, or systems that free you to scale. In tougher timelines, the reward comes as clarity, seeing what to release and what to rebuild in a different design. Prepare by auditing your foundations early, lining up reputable counsel, and treating major financial shifts as project-managed moves rather than flights driven by impulse. Gemini, the messenger rewired. Gemini, the fire horse, makes your conversations faster, your inbox louder, and your ideas more contagious. In January and February, you may find a narrative changing, an inner voice that speaks with more conviction, or acquaintances who approach you with doors you didn't expect. Your quicksilver mind is a great asset, but the challenge early is depth over velocity. What you seed now will be the platform for spring. Spring is the season for visibility. Interviews, publications, or a communication role could amplify your profile. Partnerships formed now may influence months of progress. The horse's flame translates for you as charismatic momentum. Use that momentum to tell a coherent story about who you are and what you value, because scattershot brilliance impresses briefly and is seldom sustained. The strategic play is to build one signature piece of work or an unmistakable brand direction. By summer, choices about alignment become acute. Temptation will center around multiplying influence at the expense of authenticity. Offers of exposure or quick followers that require linguistic compromise are likely. You may be asked to toe lines that misrepresent your work or to pivot into modes that feel performative. The fire horse accelerates discernment. If a route promises speed but erodes integrity, it will cost you later. Autumn can bring consolidation into a new public identity or the steadying of a platform you launched. Revenues tied to your voice could stabilize, or you may find the exact circle of collaborators who sustain your work. Prepare by drafting your narrative before opportunities make demands. Clarify what you will and won't represent, and protect time for thinking even when the world asks for your fastest output. Cancer, the hearth remade. Cancer, the fire horse, targets the place you call home and the emotional rules you live by. In January and February, notice subtle recalibrations in domestic rhythms. A parent's need shifting, a lease that ends, or an inner recognition that your sense of belonging is changing. These changes aren't necessarily dramatic at first, but they will be catalytic. Spring may offer tangible openings around residence, family, or intimate partnership. You could find a relocation possibility that meets deeper needs or an emotional recalibration that allows for healthier boundaries. The horse's fire has a domesticated function for you. It clears old resentments and forces pragmatic decisions about cohabitation, caregiving, and daily life. If there is one theme, it is that emotional labor converts to structural change. Summer heightens vulnerability. Emotional tests, family dramas, or the need to choose between comfort and growth will be accentuated. The fire horse can ignite both healing and conflict. Your task is to hold the space for honest conversation without letting heat become a burn. Practical measures, mediation, financial planning for caregiving, or clear moving plans help translate emotional clarity into sustainable arrangements. Autumn is a season of recalibration toward a more secure home life. For some, that will mean a new residence that better fits current needs. For others, it will mean stable agreements that finally honor emotional labor. Prepare by documenting priorities for household arrangements, seeking objective counsel if stakes are high, and protecting your rest even as you make necessary changes. Leo, the throne refined. Leo, you are cited by the fire horse as a potential figure of emergence. In the early months, January and February, the stirrings may arrive as invitations, a creative offer, a leadership audition, or a responsibility that carries public notice. The initial signal is often flattering, and it asks a question: is your pride aligned with service or with spectacle? Spring brings an opportunity to transform charisma into fair authority. Projects that showcase your talents could generate momentum if you temper the instinct to command alone. The horse's flame favors leaders who recognize the weight of influence. If you use light for illumination rather than for show, rewards expand beyond applause into durable influence. Summer is the year's theatrical peak. A major reveal, premiere, or public decision may place you center stage. The test is moral and practical. Do you take shortcuts for applause, or do you accept slower, steadier scaling that cements legacy? The fire horse exposes performative leadership. Those who depend only on surface approval may find support evaporates under heat. Autumn allows Leos to consolidate reputation into tangible assets. Steady audiences, reliable partnerships, or structural power within a creative or corporate domain. Prepare by building capable teams that manage details you might prefer to ignore, and by setting boundaries around ego-driven decisions. Remember that influence secured through integrity is harder to pull down than any showy victory. Virgo, the architect reforged. Virgo, the fire horse challenges the systems you depend on. In January and February, you may feel friction in routines, technology glitches, process failures, or a sense that a method you trusted no longer yields results. These early annoyances are not mere irritants. They are diagnostic lights pointing to where efficiency meets obsolescence. Spring is a chance to redesign systems rather than patch them. A workflow overhaul, a professional credential, or a structural reorganization at work might appear. The horse's flame for you is practical. It burns the excess and reveals what functions under pressure. Those who invest in durable architecture now may experience disproportionate returns, systems that scale where others cannot. Summer brings both opportunity and temptation. The temptation is to optimize everything to the point of paralysis, tweaking variables endlessly while delaying decisive deployment. The fire horse argues for smart, timely implementation. Choose the minimum viable change that integrates reliably and then iterate. This period may also include scrutiny from supervisors or clients. Transparent documentation and pragmatic reporting protect you here. Autumn is when the retooled systems begin to pay off. Efficiency frees bandwidth for higher-level work. Reputational reliability increases, and you can begin to standardize gains. Prepare by prioritizing projects in order of impact. documenting processes thoroughly and resisting perfectionism that delays decisive launches. A pause in the gallop. We have reached a bend in the trail. The first arc of the Firehorse year highlights a set of signs that meet the flame in ways consistent with movement, building, communication, home, leadership, and systems. Across these early chapters, common threads appear. The demand for intention over impulse, the premium on trustworthy allies, and the value of converting inner steadiness into external structures. The seer's line about a rapid year that separates gold from dross hangs over these months like smoke. Beautiful if you stand downwind, dangerous if you stand too close. Stay with the flow of this reading. The next winds will bring stories of relationship reckoning, spiritual intensity, bold reinvention, and unexpected departures. Air signs and water signs that may experience relocations, moral tests, and transformative alliances under the Firehorse's hooves. But before we follow them into the blaze, take a moment to inventory what you learned from these early sign guides. What can you protect? What do you need to lose? The horse runs fast. Readiness is what keeps you in the saddle rather than chasing the sparks. Libra, the scales rebalanced. Libra, the Firehorse arrives at your doorstep like an uninvited judge who actually wants to settle the score. In January and February, you may notice a change in the arithmetic of relationships. Late-night conversations that reveal new priorities, negotiations that feel thinner than they should, or an inner stir toward fairness that refuses to be ignored. These early signals are not mild nudges. They are the horse's snort asking you to weigh what you've been tolerating. Come spring, March through May, the balance beams tilt visibly. Partnerships, romantic, business, or creative, may offer realignment. Joint ventures that promise more control, a reconciliation that demands new boundaries, or a separation that finally clarifies your terms. The Firehorse here does two things at once. It speeds the pace of relational truth, and it magnifies the costs of ambiguity. Offers made in spring are real offers, but they will require you to sign with your eyes open. The strategic play is to ask clarifying questions before you lean in. Timelines, expectations, and who covers what if things go sideways. Summer, June, August, turns up the heat on moral choices. Temptations to preserve harmony at the expense of your integrity become louder. Old compromises may be scrambled into crises. The Firehorse loves decisive motion, so when you pause to deliberate, you'll feel the pressure to move fast. That pressure is a test. Do you preserve balance by smoothing things over, or do you preserve yourself by enforcing fair terms? Public scenes may arise. Negotiations can spill into social circles. This season rewards elegant firmness, clear language that is not cold, and punishes evasive charm. Autumn, September, November, offers the ledger's tally. If you used spring to clarify and summer to hold firm, you enter a season of stabilized partnerships, equitable agreements, clearer roles, and a sense that shared projects can proceed without constant arbitration. For those who delayed or placated too long, autumn may deliver an unromantic accounting, a separation that wasn't the plan but gives relief. Prepare by documenting agreements early, keeping communication concise, and allowing enough breathing space for mediation or counsel if negotiations are high stakes. The Firehorse will respect contracts more than vague promises. Prepare by defining what fair means to you before others define it for you. Write it down, speak it plainly, and let that clarity be your compass. Scorpio, the deep furnace. Scorpio, the Firehorse stokes your undercurrent. In January and February, you may feel a subterranean shift, dreams more vivid, an old grievance resurfacing, or a secret that wants daylight. These early tremors are not accidental. They are the horse's heat reaching into places you usually keep shielded. For you, the flame is both crucible and revelation. Spring invites an intensification of power dynamics. A resource reallocation, a change in who controls money, credit, or influence may demand moral choices. The horse's flame exposes duplication and deceit. It also reveals your own capacity for mercy or retribution. You may discover a talent that has been quiet, or you may be forced to confront a habit that drains your power. The wise move is to transform instinct into strategy. Channel intensity into disciplined inquiry rather than into scorched earth retaliation. Summer is the year's sharp trial. Scorpio, this season could present confrontations that test your ethics. A betrayal, a legacy conflict, or a temptation that promises swift personal gain at someone else's expense. The fire horse accentuates hidden currents. It will bring alliances and rivalries to a head. Your advantage is depth of assessment. Your disadvantage, if you allow it, is vindictiveness. The moral cost of seizing a quick win at the expense of integrity will be magnified later. Measured navigation preserves you. Autumn offers the potential for alchemical rewards. What you choose to transmute now, grief into purposeful action, secrecy into honest stewardship, can solidify into new influence or material stability. You may inherit responsibility, or you may assume a role that requires discretion and an ability to hold difficult truths. Prepare by investing in armor that is not defensive rage, but disciplined resilience. Therapy, legal clarity, financial transparency, and trusted advisors who ask the hard but fair questions. Prepare by naming the loyalties you will not betray. Let that named commitment guide your choices under heat. Sagittarius, the arrow reforged. Sagittarius, the fire horse, accelerates your trajectory. In January and February, you may feel an itch for a different horizon, a map that needs redrawing, a skill you've postponed learning, or an idea that insists on a test run. Those early months are an invitation to realignment, less about escape and more about choosing a purposeful direction. Spring brings expansion with caveats. Opportunities to publish, lecture, teach, or travel for study may arise, but the fire horse warns against careless leaps. The domains of belief and long-distance plans are highlighted. You could lock in a schedule that expands your reach, or you could sign up for projects that dilute your message. The smart play is to pilot first, test a course, gather feedback, and secure logistics before you commit to sweeping promises. Summer is the season of bold experiments and ethical crossroads. Offers of rapid visibility, sponsorships, endorsements, or simplified narratives may tempt you to compress nuance for marketability. The fire horse rewards honesty and expansion. If you trade depth for speed, you risk credibility. This summer may also bring travel that tests your capacity for self-care, or public debates where your reputation is at stake. Courage is needed, but so is the discipline to say no to offers that require lowering your standards. Autumn can produce a harvest of new audiences, credentialed projects, or a reframed philosophy that finally fits your lived experience. You may be invited into platforms that demand steadiness. Prepare by building logistical scaffolding before you broaden your map, advisors, clear contracts, and contingency plans for long-term projects. The fire horse accelerates movement. Prepare to carry what you start. Prepare by sketching a sustainable expansion plan before you jump. Test, secure, and then launch. Capricorn, the summit remade. Capricorn, the fire horse touches your mountain. In January and February, there may be a small but insistent pressure, a deadline that tightens, a team member who quits, or an inner voice asking whether the current climb is still yours to pursue. These stirrings are structural signals telling you the route needs rechecking. Spring is where professional pivots can crystallize. Promotions, reorganizations, or strategic partnerships could appear. The fire horse rewards leaders who demonstrate steady governance under sudden demand. It punishes leaders who use heat as a cover for neglecting details. If offered a new domain of responsibility, weigh not only title but structure. Who supports execution when the pace accelerates? Summer brings the most visible stress test. Capricorns may find themselves at the center of high-stakes decisions, public scrutiny, or burnout risk. The fire horse asks whether your ambition is sustainable and whether your ladder has safety anchors. Ethical choices about resource allocation, whom you reward, where you cut, what you outsource will define reputational outcomes. Practical discipline and early delegation protect both health and legacy. Autumn can be consolidating if you documented systems and delegated wisely. Projects launched under heat could convert into long-term revenue streams or lasting institutional changes. If the year demanded painful cuts, autumn gives clarity and a chance to rebuild more intentionally. Prepare by auditing workload before the summer spikes, securing professional counsel for major shifts, and planning recovery periods to prevent attrition. Prepare by creating a durability plan. Who holds things when you are absent, and what systems prevent collapse under sudden heat? Aquarius, the sky rewritten. Aquarius, the fire horse, electrifies your future-facing grid. In January and February, you may notice shifts in networks, collaborators who pivot, a tech that suddenly matters, or a rumor that becomes a germinal idea. These early shifts point to where innovation needs governance rather than pure novelty. Spring is a time for collaborative breakthroughs. Collective projects, platform launches, or community organizing that channels the horse's momentum could surface. The fire horse loves risk when it amplifies shared purpose. It punishes siloed brilliance. For Aquarians, the task is to translate eccentric ideas into usable systems, prototypes that can be scaled without losing ethical guardrails. Summer intensifies the public angle. Your association with a movement, an app, or a cause might attract enthusiastic backers and sharp critics. Temptations include overpromising technical fixes or rushing governance to match publicity. The fire horse favors modular, transparent implementations. It will expose projects that are fashionable but structurally irresponsible. Expect intellectual property disputes, governance questions, and pressure to monetize experimentation. Autumn rewards those who combine vision with structure. Sustainable communities, fair revenue sharing models, or platforms with real user benefits. The year can conclude with Aquarians occupying influential seats in networks that matter, or with the sober lesson that hype alone does not build legacy. Prepare by defining clear governance and ethical terms for collaborations before scaling, and by setting guardrails that preserve community trust even when the platform grows fast. Prepare by codifying the values for any collective you help lead, rules that survive success and protect against quick compromises. Pisces, the ocean transfigured. Pisces, the fire horse, moves through you as a tidal force. In January and February, subtle emotional currents may shift. Dreams with clearer themes, creative impulses that won't be ignored, or a compassionate call that becomes career critical. These early stirrings are the horse's heat distilled into spiritual pressure. Spring is fertile for artistic breakthrough, spiritual deepening, or service-oriented projects that finally find structure. The fire horse encourages you to convert feeling into craft, disciplined ritual, scheduled practice, or project plans that make your intuition legible to others. Offers that resonate now could transform hobbyist pursuits into sustainable contributions, but they will require boundary setting to avoid exploitation. Summer is the crucible of discernment. You may meet patrons or collaborators who want your creative output but not your values. You may be tempted to dilute your voice for broader access. The fire horse tests whether your compassion will be co-opted. Emotional labor is valuable but exhausting. Protect your limits. At other times, summer might present a spiritual test. Charismatic leaders whose promises are shiny but hollow. Your inner compass must be sharpened. Autumn can bring a luminous harvest. Published work, an exhibition, a program that channels your gifts into reliable income, or a deeper spiritual practice that steadies daily life. Alternatively, it may deliver the relief of having set boundaries that let you conserve creative energy. Prepare by formalizing creative schedules, securing straightforward contracts, and building slow systems that turn impulse into output without extinguishing the flame. Prepare by translating feeling into form, regular practice, clear agreements, and protective boundaries that allow creative fire to become sustainable work. The visionaries and the builders, a mid-year reckoning. Across the air and water signs we've just visited, a pattern emerges that mirrors what the fire horse's imagery implies. Speed, merry to test. The horse does not simply favor novelty or sensitivity. It favors those who convert those qualities into disciplined action. Vision without architecture, heat without restraint, empathy without boundaries, these are the ways the flame burns what we aim to keep. Conversely, those who balance impulse with structure, vision with accountability, and passion with practical plans are likely to find the year accelerates them into meaningful positions rather than into transient flickers. As we approach the climax of the seasonal arc, several recurrent motifs deserve emphasis. First, timing matters. The match struck in January will not burn forever. Windows open and close quickly. Second, the moral dimension of decisions is amplified. Choices motivated by expediency will echo through the rest of the year. Third, leadership in 2026 is more often stewardship than spectacle. The fire horse appears to reward quiet, steady governance as much as charismatic displays. And finally, purification is double-edged. Some ash is necessary to clear space for new growth, but reckless burning leaves long-term deficits. Common threads and the seer's echo. If you trace the seer's imagery through these 12 arcs, you notice a consistent metaphor. Fire as a refining agent rather than an arbitrary destroyer. Nostradamus' language, translated here as an evocative motif, asks us to imagine a year that separates what was truly forged from what only seemed so. That separation will play out in many ways. Reputational weeding, financial reassessment, the exposure of shallow alliances, and the unveiling of durable talents. For many signs, the horse's hooves will drum a tempo where early year care, springful decisiveness, a summer test, and an autumn consolidation form the rhythm. The year's gifts tend to favor adaptive responsibility. Those who accept that leadership includes stewardship, and success includes the patience to build a scaffold that lasts. Across the Zodiac, expect a premium on clarity. Clear contracts, clear boundaries, clear narratives, and clear contingency planning. Fire rewards those who accept heat as a shaping tool rather than a weapon to consume what once was. Practical framing, how to ride without burning. What does this mean in practical terms? First, take the calendar seriously. Treat January, February as diagnostic months, not months of headline action. Use them to inventory vulnerabilities, legal, financial, relational, and logistical. Second, when spring offers arrive, make decisions with both courage and contingency. Say yes to growth, but build fallback systems before you accelerate. Third, during summer's tests, lean on documented structures, contracts, written agreements, mentors, and resist shortcuts that promise quick acclaim. Fourth, view autumn as your accounting season. Close with integrity, consolidate gains into systems, and repair relationships that were strained by heat. There are also emotional tools that suit the fire horse year. Practice distinguishing urgency from importance. Urgency demands immediate answer. Importance demands considered action. Build a pause protocol, a checklist you run through when high pressure urges an impulsive yes. Assemble a small council, trusted friends, an advisor, a professional whose job is to tell you what you may not want to hear. And remember that repair is possible. If you misstep, owning the mistake and making tangible restitution often restores trust faster than defensiveness. Moral cautions and ethical red lines. The prophetic lens we borrow from Nostradamus reminds us that power and temptation often arrive hand in hand. Certain signs will face specific ethical traps. Scorpio's seductive shortcuts, Sagittarius's haste to scale without guardrails, Libra's smoothing over of real injustices, and Leo's hunger for applause disguised as leadership. These are not moral judgments so much as warnings. The fire horse magnifies both capacity and consequence. When opportunity appears to reward bending rules, consider whether the gain aligns with the legacy you want to build. Another caution: success obtained by undermining others rarely endures. The fire may speed initial gains, but it also clarifies support over time. Build influence by adding value, not by subtracting others. If a conflict arises where the path forward demands harming someone else for your benefit, pause and consider alternative actions that preserve dignity even if they slow momentum. A final parable of the forge. Imagine two smiths given identical piles of ore and the same roaring hearth. The first smith swings wildly, scattering sparks, and produces a ring of metal that glows but warps when cooled. The second smith sets a measured rhythm, tempers the steel, cools it carefully, and shapes a blade that holds its edge. The fire horse year is the hearth. It will reward the measured smith more often than the one who mistakes heat for haste. That distinction is not sentimental, it is practical. The world 2026 shapes will remember blades that cut cleanly and not metal that only shined briefly. Final reflection and the seer's whisper. If Nostradamus's quartets teach anything for our present reading, it is the value of perceiving imagery as a moral and psychological prompt rather than as a literal script. The seer's lines, phrases about flames, steeds, and decisive years, are valuable because they force attention to tempo and test. They invite us to ask, where is the heat focused in my life, and how will I respond? For some signs, 2026 will be an accelerant toward rightful power. For others, it will be a sifting wind that clarifies next steps. For everyone, it is a call to prepare. Use the fire as a forge. Plan, set boundaries, assemble counsel, and move with both courage and restraint. Protect relationships that matter, secure legal and financial foundations where stakes are high, and allow moral clarity to inform your fastest choices. If a temptation promises speed, but at the cost of your values, remember that autumn counts what you kept, not what you could have seized in a single summer night. If this reading resonated with you, like and subscribe for deep dives by sign, and check the description for timing charts and full sign guides that map months and domains in more detail. Ride wisely. The fire horse runs fast, but those who prepare can turn its heat into a true reshaping of their lives.